Devyangana, welcome to the ROHFIT LifePod. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. For those who don't know, Devyangana is a very close friend of mine. I actually know her through university in London. She is my brother's very close friend, which is how actually we became good friends. And this podcast is mainly an experiential podcast where we don't really focus on a mentor's experience or what they bring to the table, but a person in their 20s and the whole process of what a person goes through, whether it's university, college, the changes in a person's life during this age gap, obviously university being one of them, relationships and much more. So before we go forward, I just want to give you the stage to introduce yourself, what you do. The stage is yours.
So I'm Devyangana Sagar. I am 24 years old, soon to turn 25, and I've just come back from the UK. I've quit my corporate job. I worked there for 3 years, and now I'm back in India, in Chennai, currently exploring what I want to do, like everybody else. And other than that, I am an army kid. Both my parents work for the government, moved around houses, lived in several cities across India, and yeah, just taking one day at a time at this point.
That's good. So, obviously to give a little more background, we actually connected back in 2018, 2019. I think it was my brother's first year at University of Warwick. And I had just gone to university in City University, London. And we actually met at, I think, Coventry, or I think somewhere before that.
Yeah.
And we connected very randomly by Gaurav introduced me, like she's one of my close friends, Devyangana, and we just like really hit it off.
Yeah.
And I think we connected on our love for music, perfumes mainly, I feel, because we both are perfume fanatics. But, coming back a little bit, we both had interesting journeys through university. I had a little different, a little murky one. I would like to know your experience, just to start off the podcast with explaining like what goes into a person's mind when obviously choosing a university, choosing a college, what they have to do in terms of their course, and mainly when it comes to choosing a university, what all to take into consideration. Because my experience was a little bit of a miss. But as far as I know, every time I came to Warwick, I felt very much at home.
Yeah.
Because I chose my university in terms of the course and it was very much in the city. But what I realized is there's a lot of sense of community that people kind of miss out on and they kind of overlook when they're selecting a university, and they don't really find a sense of belonging or footing. So what's your take on that?
I think you said that every time you came back, you felt like you were at home. So I think that's something you can't really account for. Like you can either find your home or you make your home. And I don't think you can preempt it. In terms of selecting which university, I think if you're lucky enough to have parents who know where they want to send you and you've done your research, you've got people who've been there, that's one way. I particularly didn't know that I wanted to be in the UK. I was applying to universities in the US, and I think UK just happened by choice, and I'm very glad that it happened that way. One of my mom's friends suggested that you could apply to Warwick. It was a university I hadn't even heard of at the time. And the good part about applying to the UK is that you send in one application for 5 universities as opposed to sending a separate application for every university in the US. So I think part of it is luck. And wherever you get in, I think you either make peace with that or, you figure out what to do, if not that. I do want to say that it's your experience at a university is a lot about what you want to make out of it. I think people are pretty much into their own shells when they come, or they're quite out there. So you kind of want to find the balance between being in your comfort zone, but also trying to push through. So it was relatively easier for me to make friends because I've been moving around all throughout my like early teens and moved schools and had to make friends and then lost friends and remade a few connections. But yeah, I think it's about finding what you want to do in terms of like, is there a sport that speaks to you? Is there an activity that you're very interested in? Could be a dance club, a music club, any sort of community feeling that you can get. I know a lot of people don't necessarily push themselves out in the first few weeks, and that's kind of what makes or breaks everything. It's very easy to feel homesick, and I don't blame people. I think it's just a part of growing up. Had you had a different experience while you were at university, you would be a different person today. But I think
100%.
you wouldn't want to change a thing about it. So, in terms of choosing whether you want to do a city university or a campus university, that's obviously very subjective. But there's always going to be a what if. So, you kind of want to weigh your own pros and cons of where you feel like you're going to be a better fit. For me, I think it was more about the university as a whole and where I would get a good course. And Warwick is obviously one of the top 10 in the UK and Europe. So it was a no brainer in terms of going there. I do think London as a city can get very overwhelming and lonely. And yeah, so
First-hand experience.
so it just, yeah, I mean, I think you just have to push yourself out there, and maybe you'll end up finding good people, maybe you won't, but either way, you learn something. So,
Actually, it's a blessing because I kind of found this love for waiting for the weekend just so I could travel to, obviously, Gaurav, my brother's place where he always staying, Leamington Spa.
yeah.
And there was just this sense of familiarity. Like, I know I have been going to City University and my course is there and like my classes are there, but there was just a sense of community in terms of the people there, especially obviously there were Indians, there were other people as well,
Yeah.
but there was so much in terms of a social acceptance, which a lot of people do find tricky, not only in the UK, also in the US. And the one good thing about that is that I'm going to mention is that it taught me a lot to do with like interpersonal skills. So when I was in London, that week, how spending time with myself, understanding myself, definitely giving that extra edge in terms of, okay, well, how do you make the most of it?
Yeah.
And I think coming to the point that you mentioned, finding a sport, you are a figure skater. And I think you've done heaps and bounds in terms of, obviously figure skating. There was an event that we kept, that my brother kept, and you also did a nice little snippet in that. So do you want to tell us more about how you ended up finding your love for figure skating?
So I started skating at the age of 4.5. And then that was kind of the only constant thing I had till I was about 15, 16 years old. I got into figure skating when I moved to Bombay in 2008 when I was 9 years old. And I was looking for these skating classes. And after the class ended, I went up to the coach and I was going to inquire about speed skating. And right then I saw these girls coming and doing these pretty things and flying and just like, spinning and looking all like birds flying. I mean, I knew I wanted to do it then. So the next day I came and I enrolled myself in that class, and I think the rest is sort of history. I am very sort of thankful to the coach that I had. She really, is kind of like my second mother. She is pretty much the reason why I am who I am today. She made sure that I was in the specific like line of figure skating that spoke most to me. So even within artistic skating, to give you a bit of background, there are like sub categories, and you can't do all of it. But there's artistic, which is the pretty looking one that everybody sees on the winter sports and the ice. And then there's figure skating, which is the slightly more technical, which is what I ended up shifting towards. And I continued doing that till I want to say I was in India, till I was 15, 16 years old. And then when I moved to the UK, I still knew I wanted to be connected to the sport. There's a big culture on ice skating and not so much on roller skating. So I kind of started to freelance and I taught a few people how to skate. And then I just did it for fun, went around in parks. And yeah,
Oh, nice.
that's about it.
I think there's a beauty in this one thing that you said, that you kind of knew that you saw somebody do it and there was a sense of inspirational spark that kind of came into you
Yeah.
to again go through with it and follow it through. And I wanted to also delve into understanding what goes into finding a love for a hobby. and then turning that into something that upskills you. You know, obviously you found these people doing these amazing tricks, and then you found your love for figure skating, and then you found another avenue that people in a different country itself. So like, what went into like your will to get up every day and be motivated to be like, you know what, I really love this, I want to go ahead and do this? Because a lot of people, including me, really started on as a hobby. And why you feel like if you don't get to do it like forever, turn it into like, say, your 9 to 5, turn it into that thing that you would become, say, a figure skater for India, or take it one step further. A lot of, like, for me, it was tennis. So I've been playing tennis since I was 6. I'm recently getting back into it. I'm recently understanding how taxing it is on the body, like especially when you're playing when you're 17, and now when you're 23, 24. And like, it's all kind of just figuring that thing out. And I'm doing it as a hobby right now, but some days when I feel like I play, I kind of feel like, you know what, one step further, I want to go. But yeah, what is that thing where you kind of be like, okay, I'll be content and satisfied of this being a hobby, and I can carry on another career path?
Right. I think you've probably heard of this thing called ikigai. Like,
Yeah.
Don't really believe in it, but I don't think you can monetize everything, because sometimes making something into a career might like kill the fun out of it. I think I always knew that this is not a viable career for me, because especially in India, it's not that big. There's not that much money, recognition, everything. So you could be a coach, you could be an athlete, but I don't think it's a sustainable one. So it's unlike, career and like a career in cricket or football. But coming back to your question, like, how do you find new hobbies and how do you like go about it? I think there's either a problem of plenty or a problem of like, I don't know if there's anything that really excites me enough beyond my 9 to 5 or my desk job. For me, it was a bit of a problem of plenty. I think there's a few things that interest me, like you said, perfumes and just skating and dancing. I tried my hand at like arts and just painting a little bit. But you kind of know where you see yourself spending more time. And is this something you do purely out of love? Are you doing it to take it into a monetization aspect, or are you trying to pick up a completely different hobby altogether to learn something new because it's always fascinated you? Like, for example, if I talk about tennis, I think it's a great sport, and I probably at some point in my life would want to learn it. Still haven't gotten there, but I think if you have a group of people who are doing a bunch of different things, and that's probably a good starting point. Like, I recently went for a dance workshop with a friend, so I've always wanted to go out there and like learn dance. I would do dance back at home and just do a few dance performances here and there, but it's just like taking that first step of asking somebody, or pushing yourself out of your comfort zone, being like, this is something I want to do. What can I find online? I mean, the internet is a wide space. You search something, okay, so here's a class, here's a workshop, take it, do it, and you'll know for yourself, like, is this something that I want to do as a hobby, or am I getting too interested in it to maybe think about it on a more serious length? So yeah, I think that's kind of my way of going about.
That's like a valid point to definitely think about, because one thing that you reminded me of is that a lot of people, there's a nice segue to the next point. A lot of people want to explore, particularly to explore.
Yeah.
A lot of people are just like, this is a time in my life. Specifically, it was like, for me, it was like the 19 to 21, or 18 to 21. Just also during college, understanding where do I want to find my footing. But the beauty of what you said about Ikigai, it's like you can't monetize everything.
Yeah.
But our mindsets are so conditioned.
True.
As to figuring out that we want to upskill ourselves, but we want to upskill ourselves, and whatever we are upskilling ourselves in, realizing that, this may not be the end of the line. This is not something that will take us to the end of the line. Like for me, it was like, or you, Gaurav, my brother, a lot of our friends also realized that once I was like really into music.
Yeah.
And I released an album and I was doing really well. That album got a gold certification. It was really good. and then it kind of fizzled out. And I really thought I'd see the end of it in terms of taking it to the next level. But the beauty of it is when I look back at it now, it's a good piece of art that I feel like I created in that time, and I feel like it solidified itself there.
Yeah.
And I'm proud of it. Like I can wear it as like a proud badge and go ahead.
Yeah, I can vouch for that.
Yeah. I'm really attempting to get back into it as a hobby for sure.
Yeah.
But now, like when I found ROHFIT, also you in terms of understanding your new avenues, we'll definitely get into that. There is a sense of acceptance that, you can't be great at everything.
True.
And you can't you need to find that one thing which will eventually push you to wake up every day. And this was a conversation we were having the other day as well. It is something that you'll wake up to and be like, okay, I can set out to chase this thing, wrap it up by the end of the day. This is my opening balance, this is my closing balance. Pretty happy with it. So obviously, as we mentioned the other day, you are also now trying to set out and finding your career path. So you also spoke about interior designing, you applying for your MBA.
Yeah.
What does a person especially in the mid-20s like you are right now, what does it take to explore different various options in terms of what is your experience in terms of understanding to explore a career path, and what is something that the steps that you are taking to find, something that you'll stick with?
Right. I mean, I'm no expert, but I think it takes trying to realize, like you said, you did the music thing and you realize that it was a good piece, but might not be the end of everything. So similarly for me as well, I think I knew that I wanted to try out a bunch of things. And being in the UK, being on a restricted work visa didn't give me that flexibility. I would wake up doing my 9 to 5. It was a good experience, but I think I would always deep down feel like I can do more. I kind of want to explore things and meet people and just figure out what is it like to be in an unstable, uncharted route. So, you've always had a well-defined path. You do school, you do university, and then you go for your, usual 9 to 5. You get into a job, and then that's the end of it. Before you know, you've made manager, and you get married, retire, you die. Yeah. So I think for me, I was going back to the point, I'm very easily inspired, and I think I wanted to start executing. So having finished 3 years, I told myself that this is it. I'm moving back. I've had this field of experience, and I'm maybe ready to take on a challenge now. And that challenge comes with not having found my feet yet and not having had that stability, which obviously is a byproduct of trying to explore. You can't have everything all at once. I think for me, I know that interior designing is not per se what I want to do, because I don't come from a designing background. I don't have the educational or professional experience. But for me, I knew I wanted to be in a creative industry. I wanted to do something that meets business and creativity. Maybe 3 years from now, when we sit again and have a conversation, I'd have a better idea of what I'm doing. But I think everybody who thinks and looks like they have it figured out is just trying to wing it.
It's always a rolling ball.
You're taking it one day, 1 week, 1 month at a time. And I think since I've come back, I've had some very interesting conversations with people who are doing great work. Like one of our own friends he's got his own startup, and people from university to now have branched out into very different careers. So yeah, one thing you can do is obviously speak to people and know if that industry is also for you or not. The other thing you can do is take action and actually be there. So I've come to Bombay now. I'm in the middle of the busiest city possible, and I'm meeting a few friends who are in the industry. I'm visiting sites and just seeing what it is like. And the third thing is take some time, get into that cafe, work from a cafe zone, maybe figure out what is it that you can bring to the table. There's always upskilling that's required. You need to learn. You can't just enter a field thinking that I know everything, especially when you have zero background in it. So that's where I'm at currently. I know there's miles to go, but I'm also fiercely ambitious, and I know that I'll get there. But I think one thing I've learned along this way is that you shouldn't be afraid to ask for help. And I think look around yourself, and there's so many people who are willing to help you in ways that you don't even realize. And for me, that came in the sense of, because I've always had that well laid out path. And given that my family has moved around, people think that it's very easy to come back, leave everything, quit 6 years of life in the UK and then now find your feet again in a new city. It sounds easy, but I think it is not when you're trying to rediscover, reinvent everything about yourself and in every aspect of your life, from health to friendships, relationships, and career, more importantly. So I think just having that solid, like 2-3 people that you can rely on, who can maybe just be your guiding lights. And yeah, for me, I think that's mostly been my mom. We've gotten a lot closer over the last couple of years, and like she has been kind of the guiding force to tell me that you've always wanted to do this, but everyone else told you otherwise. So there's a lot of noise that I realized that people will say things, they will have their own opinions. You just have to cut it out and listen to, obviously, yourself and somebody else who has the best interest, which I think, in my opinion, is my mom. So, yeah.
Another thing I'd like to credit my own mother, that she said that of late she was just discussing an experience of truly trying to do or testing out to do is to shut out all the external noise, and just do one thing that your inner soul is asking you to do. So it was very random.
You're doing that.
Yeah, like I'm trying.
Yeah.
But credit to her, she recently explained this one event that sort of happened to her. And it kind of just, if you truly listen to what you want to do internally, it'll find a way to happen by itself. It's like the pieces will be set there, and it'll find a way. Obviously, sometimes it won't make sense, but you'll reach that same goal, which your inner heart is desiring. And this brings me to like the next point is that...
I actually want to add something. Okay. One of my friends sent me this very interesting video, or reel rather, which said that, you will be shown your end destination, that, you see yourself sitting on a throne, or you see yourself as a certain something. Maybe that could be being in front of the camera for you, or just whatever that is. God's not going to tell you how you're going to get there. You'll have that vision, because if you were told how to get there, it wouldn't be that exciting.
Right.
So, like, put yourself, like, trust your vision and, like, start work at some point. You may not have the best laid out path. Like, life isn't supposed to be a linear graph. And I think in theory we all kind of know that, but when like things come at you and they throw you down,
it won't make sense.
Yeah,
it doesn't make sense.
You're just looking at the next person and thinking that, I could have been that had I done that. So naturally, like, I think comparison is not the way to it.
Right.
It's a lot harder to not compare today. But just that video really like spoke to me that, okay, you see yourself doing something. Why are you trying to go another way? And only to redirect yourself here.
Correct.
So, yeah, but you were asking another question.
Yeah, that's amazing. Before obviously asking the question, one thing that you mentioned in that reel or that video is the fact that today a lot of people deem a lot of their actions or a lot of their attempts, a lot of their, projections or failures at the point that it's like life teaching you where you don't belong, and where you do belong. So it's not about, it's like that multiple choice where slowly the things that aren't for you are slowly just coming out and shining light on the right answer.
Yeah.
So it's the process of elimination and truly trying to understand, because at the end of the day, you want to fill up a life full of experiences.
Yeah.
It's not about, oh, you're born and here is the correct answer.
Yeah.
It's you're born, here's the wrong answer, cut it out. Another wrong answer, cut it out.
Yeah.
Another wrong answer. And then when you reach that point, there's a sense of fulfillment and content, where we as human beings, or our condition, our mindsets are in such a way where we just feel, okay, you know what? It feels like the time and the effort that I took to reach here feels right.
Yeah.
And I think there's the beauty in that. So, like, definitely coming back to the question, a lot of people that I spoke to, they deemed 2023 as a self-correcting year. In a lot of people's lives, there were a lot of heavy moments, a lot of roller coasters, my own, like I would say, personal experience. You mentioned that the last year was a little heavy for you as well. Why I want to deem it the self-correcting year is because it gave paths for people to come to a sense of equilibrium, where it was just like, here is how you were living life in a certain way.
Yeah.
And this year is going to be the shift in terms of pushing you to the direction where you're meant to be. And sort of for a lot of people that may be losing, definitely stepping out of a current comfort space that they are in, whether it's a job, whether it's a relationship, causing that shift to kind of restart in terms of, you know what, I can do a lot more.
Yeah.
My potential calls are for a lot more.
Yeah.
So this is where I am going to try to traverse my car, and maybe it's going to make me reach a destination that is even better for me. And that self-correcting year theory really made a lot of sense to me, because after I've experienced it, after a lot of people have experienced it, they were just like, now it makes sense. Now it kind of shines light on the fact that we are so self-controlling in nature.
Yeah.
Is that we deem a conclusion, like, this is how life should be, this is how this thing should be, and that's it. And I was reading this book. I was reading The Alchemist of late.
Yeah.
And, after a lot of time, and it was on my list. And there is so much in terms of understanding the difference between written destiny and making your destiny. And a lot of people and a lot of reels and videos are just like, you can make your destiny, but nobody actually explains how. Because they even explain to an extent where they're just like, okay, your thoughts and your actions, and there's so much to play, right timing, there's so much to play in your destiny. But essentially, destiny is finding yourself at a place where you're accepting the circumstances. Because there are some things in nature where you can't change an earthquake happening at a certain time. You can't change COVID that ended up happening. You can't change. It's like you took it in your stride, and then you made something beautiful out of it.
Right.
And then you nurtured it and reached somewhere. So I think the beauty about understanding this concept of a self-correcting year, which you also explained, like, I want to understand, how did you tackle this self-correcting if you ended up having like an experience that caused a shift? You also mentioned that you realized that a corporate didn't work for you.
Yeah.
What's life like after? Like, what is the process in terms of, do you feel like there's a lot more to life after skipping that 9 to 5 sort of mentality?
Yeah. Right. I think you said this thing about acceptance. Acceptance after change is a hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And change is uncomfortable. So I think it's how much you want to make peace with the fact that something has happened to you. Sometimes you make things happen, sometimes things happen to you, and somewhere you kind of have to accept both. For me, I think I knew that I didn't want to continue my professional journey being at a big company. Nothing wrong with that. I know there's a lot of people who prefer the stability, who prefer the constant source of income and like going up the ladder, which is good for them. For me, what was the driving factor was that I knew there's more. There's more that I have to offer. There's more potential that I haven't even started to, exploit. And it's, at the end of the day, what do you wake up feeling excited to do? And I think for me, it was like, I want to do something on my own, like everybody else. You have your own company at some point in your time, or maybe join somebody else's vision. And between now and then, there's a lot of work you need to do. So I kind of sat down with myself. I was like, you know what? Companies all across the world are laying people off, and there could be any time now. I knew I was finishing 3 years. It wasn't easy to like close down life there, because being in London is fun, but the fun doesn't feel fun when you're not really happy with what you're doing on a daily basis. And you're not even then excited to live for the weekends. So what is it that you're doing in that country paying so much rent and being away from family? And so when I moved back, I think it wasn't a straightforward path. I was applying for my MBA. I finished my applications. I knew I wanted to travel without having to worry about how many leaves I've got left. And there's busy period and I need to be unstable and have my laptop on me all the time. So now having done all of that and having had those conversations that I was referring to earlier, I think I know I'm in a lot more of a happier space. I don't have it figured out, but internally I'm at peace with the fact that this is where I'm at in my life. And for the first time, it feels like it's okay to not know and you will figure it out. Maybe not in the next month or so, but eventually. And in terms of that self-correcting thing that you were talking about, you don't know that's happening to you when it's happening to you. So for me, you mentioned this thing about being in your comfort zone, and so I was in a long-term relationship that didn't work out, and then life has been different since. But if anything, I'm glad for the way things have worked out. I'm in a lot more I think I'm a lot happier mentally, because when you're not feeling good with somebody, when you're not feeling good in a certain role or in a certain company, you kind of need to plan out your exit strategy, or that will happen to you at some point. And it was a mix of both. And now having to restart at 24 is not the end of the world. People have done it. People have had much harder journeys. So intrinsically, I feel like people have their own thresholds and their own bandwidths of dealing with things. For me, I don't want to say it was easy, but I was thankful for the few people that I had, who kind of had my back quite literally when I needed them to. And that's when I also felt like it's okay to ask for help and tell people that you're not really doing the best, for whatever reason. You can't always be best at everything, and you can't always I think to break that image of your own self in your head that you're always good and you've always had it figured out was hard. But here I am. So
I think more power to you, because again, I myself was understanding of your experience, because yet again, that self-correcting here, as I'd like to say, the thing that's going to stick.
yeah.
But I myself was in a long-term relationship, and obviously understanding a lot about yourself and your capabilities and your limits. It's a bit of both, because again, I'm no regrets of 2023 at all, because that time at that point, at the end of the day, that experience is enriching you.
True.
Because our way of looking at it, or our perspective, is so limited in terms of the human condition. You know what? This is bad. Why did this happen to me? This victimizing sort of mindset. As you said, it's okay to not be okay.
Yeah.
And it's not don't blame it on anything, or don't blame it on a circumstance.
And don't blame it on you.
Don't blame it on you.
Yeah.
That's the beauty of it. If we start being unkind to ourselves, in terms of the whole "why did this happen to me" mindset, which a lot of my friends also deal with, a lot of other people who I work with also, they're dealing with the same thing. But the thing is understanding the fact that what do you take from it, and what not to do. So essentially today, if as you were explaining about your relationship trajectory, your job trajectory, and now you're at a point where you're discussing when you came down to Bombay, how you went on this amazing trek, and there was this beautiful thing that you mentioned, I did a push-up and I drank water from the river, and I'm like, that is simple, but that sounds beautiful. Because it's the heart feels full when you're out to explore.
Right.
There's so much that traveling has to offer. There's so much where that time that you get, that you gift to yourself after, say, a rough patch, after hitting this reset button of what you think is a normal life, but then ends up being something which you didn't expect.
Yeah.
Just let's improvise.
Yeah.
There was this beautiful time where you video called me in the middle of my one of my work meetings, and you had gone to Coimbatore to the Isha Yoga Center, and you just sent me this picture of Shiva, and that just warming sensation that ended up making me feel full in terms of me knowing you for so many years, and then seeing that you're so full of life exploring these new places. It puts this my brother keeps telling me that even a heartbeat is full of ups and downs,
Yeah.
because the minute you flatline, you're dead. So yeah, I think
That's
that's amazing.
nice. Yeah. No, I think it's just, you want water?
No, I'm all good.
Are you sure?
I'm all good.
Okay, cool. Now, I was saying that you said it's what you learn out of your experiences, and you at least know what you don't want. And I think there's less importance in that, but you know what you don't want out of a job. You know what you don't want out of a relationship next. And now coming back and just exploring and being out there, I think I've sort of found peace with my own self. It's this thing that people say that if you're not happy with yourself, how can you keep the others around you happy? So just taking this time to do things I've always wanted to do without a backward ticking like clock on my head. So the trek that I went out for was purely out of I went with a friend, and it was a group of other people as well. And just, there was a day when our phone times were screen time was 5 minutes. For a day, there was no network. And it was just the most beautiful thing to do to yourself. Just be away from all the noise. And even the Isha Yoga Center that I'd gone to, I mean, I'm not a big religious person, but I'd gone there 2.5, 3 years ago, and I sat in that mandir, the Dhyan Linga, which is basically a meditation center. And I sat there for 5 minutes, and even if I wanted to think of something, I couldn't, because the scientific and whatever, the energy of that place was such that your mind is at dhyan. It's in complete focus. And I kind of wanted to re-experience that. And this time when I went, there was a sound bath sort of therapy, energy meditation session going on at the time. And I was surprised that I could actually meditate for 30 minutes.
Wow.
But I struggle doing that for 10, 12 minutes on a given day. But just these things, one after the other, kind of connecting back with every fiber of your being has just been a good journey. And I think, the closer you are to yourself, the more true you're going to be in whatever work that you do, and maybe have better relationships with yourself and people around you. So,
that's beautiful. So moving on to the next point that I wanted to discuss is that obviously you have shifted a lot of places in terms, since, as you mentioned, you were an army kid, shifting from, I think there was Bombay first, then Bangalore, now Chennai. A lot of people, whenever they're shifting places in terms of the stages in their life, whether they're in college, whether they're in starting in school, it's very difficult to find your social setting in terms of friends. Friends, peers, the location itself. How did you particularly tackle it? Because one of the most integral parts of wellness is community. Understanding that, say it's a Saturday or some late in Sunday evening, you want to hang with your friends. You want to really find a sense of community and sense of being. Again, calling back to that point that I really yearned for during college. So how did you tackle that?
Right. I think when you don't have a cult or a group of friends that you sit with from, when you were in junior college, junior KG or something, you need to make the effort. And that's kind of been what I've, one of the things I've been doing since school, because I've moved schools, I've moved cities, and being in the UK as well, while having a job and not really making friends through the job, I ended up finding these groups online. There was an app called Meetup. So you can search for activities that you want to do, and that's a way of meeting people. So I'd go on hikes every once a month and then end up meeting a bunch of people. And then if we hit it off, we meet again, and then it goes on like that. So that was one thing. And then when I came back, I think just reconnecting with some old lost friends, and then just people that I've met in different junctures of my life, and letting them know that now I'm here. And every once in a year, I take a trip to Bombay, because a lot of my school friends are here, a lot of my university friends are here, and I'm the sort of person who keeps in touch. So making visits and taking that extra effort is one way. Now, being in Chennai, where I absolutely know nobody, is is an experience on its own, I think. So I kind of speak to my mom's colleagues who've got their kids similar age groups as well. We might not become the best friends, but we're still speaking, we still hang out. And yeah, I think having that open mind that everybody you next befriend is not going to be your best friend just helps it it makes it easier to make new friends. And again, like, joining these workshops, going for classes, and trying to keep an open mind when you set into a new setting. So yeah,
I think that's beautiful, because obviously understanding that there isn't much in terms of you actually going forth and introducing yourself to another person. It is really exaggerated by our mind, and it's really exaggerated by people who are like innately introverted, innately not so confident in terms of approaching. And at that point, I wouldn't deem myself as the most approaching person or extroverted person during college. I've built it a long time, but the one thing that people really, either it's society or the current state that we are in, it's just that everybody's so comforted in their own groups, their bubbles, or their misconceptions that what would that person think, or what would these bunch of people think. There is this kind of misinformative notion that we all have that, that person's definitely not going to accept me regardless of however I do it. So you always lost out on the opportunity before you even go through with it. So I think that understanding and that acceptance that you mentioned is a really beautiful point that people should ideally take in and really put it up in their stride, because if circumstances or people or places change, you can adapt to that certain kind of setting. So that's definitely one. Another thing I wanted to ask, that you mentioned you were going for a lot of workshops in a lot of places, and I've been seeing a lot of videos of you online, enjoying these workshops in terms of beautiful dancing, by the way. And
thank you.
Inviting me for a workshop of late. But how did you end up finding your sense of happiness through dance, like the idea of movement, and how important it is for somebody to either it's dance, movement. A lot of people doing yoga nowadays, Zumba as an option. What sense of happiness do you get when you're dancing?
I think before I go to the physical workout aspect, just a point there you said about acceptance. For me, I think I didn't know any other way. I had that nomadic life growing up. And a lot of my friends and people that I meet ask me that, how do you do it? Like, your parents live in different cities and you've been moving around, you never really settle in one place. How do you do it? And my answer is that I don't know any other way. So I've kind of had to build myself in a way that wherever I go with an open mind, that maybe I might make a good friend, maybe I won't, but I'm not going to be disappointed by the fact that I don't have a group of friends. I've never had a big group of friends. I've always had very solid friendships, and then they've stayed throughout. Right. But I think once you accept the fact that it's okay to not have a group, and it's okay to not fit in, you will find people who are like you. And it's going to come at a time where it's the least expected.
Right.
But yeah, moving on to the other question that you said, I knew I always liked dancing. I always liked being physically active and fit, be it through a sport or working out when I was working, and even nowadays, just maybe trying out different forms of workout. How important that is, I think I lose my mind if I don't do it. I've realized, like every other, health podcast that you hear and like blog that you read, that it's so integral to make it a part of your daily routine. You're not getting those endorphins if you're not
Right.
working out, and you see the difference. People know that there's a difference when you have that happy hormone running through your body. But I think consistency is key. Like whether that's in the form of a dance or a workout or a HIIT class or a Zumba, Pilates, whatever it is that you really enjoy, do it. Like you don't have to be good at dancing to go for a dance workshop. You don't need to be flexible to do yoga. Like you just need to show up, basically. When I go for these dance workshops, like there are people who are so good, and when you go with the intention of just having fun, you're not intimidated, you're not overwhelmed, and you're just there to try something new. Yeah, so that's my sort of take on physical activity. Like I think I really need a workout, whether that's 10 minutes or 15 minutes a day, to just keep me going.
I think there is an importance of perception, because again, as you said, that if you're going to the dance workshop and being like, okay, this person is much better than me and they're in the front row and they are really killing it,
Yeah.
and then you're just kind of on a low motivation run the entire workshop instead of just enjoying it.
Yeah.
So it's like the minute of perception, you actually start performing well when your brain is just like, you're here to have fun.
Yeah.
And this thing I'll tell you about my podcast, my first ever podcast, that I was like, okay, I have to keep this prim and proper, I have to keep that prim and proper.
Yeah.
And I was mentioning, like, literally the last podcast, if a lot of people don't really know, half podcast I spilled coffee upon myself. And the thing
Everyone should go watch it now.
I think everyone, people who do find it, please write it down in the comments. But I ended up spilling coffee on myself, but I was so engrossed in the conversation, and I enjoy being in front of the camera so much that I didn't care much.
Yeah.
And there was just this sense of continuation and this ease that set in right after, because obviously there's a lot of different aspects that are in play, consistency being one of them, how comfortable you are. Obviously it won't happen in the first workshop that you go to or the first podcast that you do.
Yeah.
So I think the takeaway here is be easy on yourself. Be easy on your tendencies as a person who's entering a new space.
Right.
Obviously there's a lot in terms of comfort, there's a lot in terms of being in uncharted territory, and when usually through life, when you're pushed into these situations or you choose to step into these uncomfortable situations, you end up finding your bearings, more or less. So I think, that's beautiful. And kind of wrapping up the podcast now, I just want to get into like a little bit of a fun segment where
drum roll.
Drum roll. Where I just want to go through all the beautiful memories that we had. Of late, we actually ended up having our graduation trip a few years ago in London.
Yeah.
And I think all of our friends were out there, and this I'm going to turn something fun into something that we should have a takeaway from.
Right.
But at that point, a lot of people don't know, but I had to repeat 1 year at university. And that was a little bit of a tough time for me. And this graduation trip, actually, all props to my brother for introducing me to this friend group. He's right behind the camera and he's smiling at me, really feeling proud. But all props to him, because I found this sense of family there in London. And there during the grad trip, it just felt like that build up towards experiencing those lows and coming up to that high, because now that I look back, that is one of the best trips I've had in my life.
Yeah.
And
we keep speaking about it.
We keep speaking about it. Somehow it has solidified in the timeline. But going through that whole process and finding, I didn't even expect that trip to happen, because originally we all were going there for your graduation and like my graduation as well, and because of COVID it all came up to be at the same time, in 2022. And we all were finding our next chapter in life, and there was this moment, obviously there were other things happening in my life at that time, but I have never been so present in my life.
I second that.
During that phase. So for those who don't know, this is a little bit of a personal project that I've been working on. I have actually gathered a lot of snippets from that trip, and I've actually made a short film.
Wow. You've done it.
Yes.
Oh,
And
amazing.
even my brother and not a lot of people know, but I was just going through the snippets and I felt like I had enough content to turn it into a short film and I have a story behind it.
Wow.
And that's a very, very precious moment of my life. So understanding, and the movie is called Present. And because
That's a nice present.
yeah, I think because it came to me at a point where I would call life as a big question mark in that phase.
Yeah.
And it came to me like this very good breather.
Hmm.
And it came to me obviously through ways I did not expect. And how important it is to be grateful to every cog in the wheel that is worked to make that happen.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think I would like to just randomly ask if you have any highlights from that trip, because I think that'll be a beautiful way to end off the podcast.
One too many, actually. I think it was the day we had gone to Neverland.
Yeah.
So basically, Neverland is this. How do I explain it? It's this place that they just turn it into a festive setting.
Like a beach.
Yeah, it was a beach in the middle of London, and I think the location didn't matter. We were all it was like a little getaway for us.
Right.
We all dressed up as if we were on the beach because we were originally going to go to Portugal for our.
It's in the middle of the city, by the way. It's middle of London.
Yeah, there's construction happening around it, and we were just all, like you said, mentally present. Everyone was just having a good time. There was music, and it was in the middle of the day. I don't know if you played a bunch of games, but I think, yeah, we played every sort of game that was around there. I think it was not so much about what we did, but just the energy that every single individual had on the given day. And yeah, I think the whole like 5-6 day trip together was just, it's etched in my memory as much as it's etched in yours. So there's no one big takeaway. It's like a feeling.
Right.
It's this feeling of, it's like a warm hug.
Right.
And every time I look back at pictures and videos, it still feels like a warm hug. So, yeah.
That's beautiful. So as for the short film, it is coming soon. I will link it in the description. I'm excited to show you, Gaurav, everybody.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think this was a beautiful experience. I hope you all can continue. Oh yeah, another thing, she does some amazing photography. So
Coming from you.
I will link her Instagram down, and
Thank you.
a few closing points from your end if you have any.
I think just don't take yourself too seriously. Like, life is serious enough. Like, have a little fun on the way. And yeah, smile. Just smile more.
That's a very good takeoff. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having
It
me.
was a pleasure.
Yeah.
And
Likewise.
yeah, I think I'm waiting for the next podcast where we're at different points in our life, but just as
Sat here.
happy as we are right now.
Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much for tuning in, and podcast out.